Chapter 4. What's up, James? Mandy demanded, racing to the back door and turning to wait for Goldie, who was meandering slowly up the path. I was picking her leather collar up off the floor, and I suddenly thought of looking at the underside, James said quickly. Mom and I looked there after we checked to see if she'd been microchipped, Mandy sighed. I thought someone had called to... Mandy, James interrupted tersely. There is a name on it. He dangled the collar in front of Mandy's eyes. I'd never have seen it if I hadn't been looking really closely. I think somebody scratched it on with the point of a needle or something. Where? Let me see. Mandy almost snatched the collar from him in her impatience. There! James pointed triumphantly to some very faint scratched lettering. Mandy squinted in concentration. She had to hold the collar at several different angles before she could make out the letters. Looks like K-I-M-S-L-E-I-O, she said doubtfully. That doesn't sound like a name. I don't think the last two are letters. I think they're numbers, James told her. There's a space after the E. Maybe someone was going to scratch the address on as well. And it isn't an S there, it's a B. Whoops, he added as the golden retriever nudged his legs with her nose. Sorry, girl, are we in your way? James moved aside to allow her to walk through the door. B, said Mandy. That would make it. Mandy figured it out. Kimball, she said. Wow, James, you're a genius. Mandy just managed to stop herself from hugging him. James got embarrassed so easily. There's a Jessica Kimball in the first grade at school, isn't there? Mandy went on excitedly. Her dad breeds birds, and I'm sure they don't have a dog, but it's an unusual name. She might have relatives who does. We could call and ask. She lives in Walton. That's what I thought, James nodded. And if she doesn't, we can look for Kimball's in the phone book. Keep an eye on Goldie, said Mandy. I'll go and tell Mom about your discovery, and I'll get the phone books. I'll bring all of them in case we need them. We've got one for every county in North Yorkshire. Well, I'm glad it's a fairly uncommon name, James murmured to Goldie. Hey, no. Come away from there, girl. I've still got the front part and one of the side parts to put in place. The dog had gone to the partially assembled box and looked as if she was about to try to get into it. James knelt down and rubbed his face against the soft fur on the retriever's chest. She whined, and when James lifted his face, she licked his cheek. Oh, Goldie. James had to take his glasses off and give them a good rub. Mandy seemed to be taking her time, so with the golden retriever watching his every move, James finished assembling the box. We should let Dr. Adam or Dr. Emily check it before you get in, he said. I'll lift it onto the table for now. Goldie watched him with mournful eyes, and James swallowed hard. The dog looked so sad. Sorry to have taken so long, James, Mandy returned, carrying 4 telephone books. Mom called Jessica's dad. He's one of our clients. They don't have any Kimball relatives in this part of the county, so it's down to searching for ourselves. Mom said to start checking in the local directory, she told James, but she doesn't want us to call anyone. She says it will be best if she does that. Office hours are finished, so she'll be here soon. Well, the local one only covers places within 15 miles or so from here. If we don't find the right Kimball in that, I hope she'll call all the Kimballs in the rest of the county, James said fiercely as he crouched down next to the dog. Mandy gazed at him in astonishment. James was usually so calm and even-tempered. Mandy gazed at him in astonishment. James muttered, Sorry, I know your mom will do that if she has to. It's just that... James buried his face against Goldie's chest again. She's such a good dog, he said in a muffled voice. I think she likes the box. She tried to get in it. It looks great, James, Mandy told him. Then she flipped through the pages of the local directory until she came to the K's. There's 5 entries under Kimball, she said. 2 in Walton, but one's Jessica. 2 in Glisterdale, and 1 in Upper Barnall. So that's 4 to try. Oh, I hope Mom doesn't take too long. Impatience should be your middle name, said Dr. Emily from behind her daughter, and Mandy turned to grin at her. I didn't hear you come in, she said. I'm not surprised. You were too busy talking. Did you say there are 4 Kimballs to try? Mandy nodded as her mom pulled out a chair and sat down. If we happen to find Goldie's owner, she said, I'll have to report to the SPCA and let them take things over from there. She smiled and gently added, I know you're hoping we'll be able to return Goldie because she was stolen, but if someone claims her, we'll need to be very sure that is what happened. You mean if she hasn't really been stolen, the owner might take her back and abandon her somewhere else? Asked James. I'm afraid so, James. That's why we'd have to let people who are used to handling this sort of thing deal with it. Dr. Emily got up and went over to the phone. When Mandy read out the first number, James got up from the floor where he'd been sitting with his arm around Goldie and joined her at the kitchen table. Their eyes were glued to Dr. Emily as she spoke to someone on the phone. Even though they could only hear one side of the conversation, it was obvious that this Kimball didn't know anything about a golden retriever, missing or otherwise. The second call was no good either. Mandy read the third number out. This time, Dr. Emily seemed to be having trouble making herself understood. I'd like to speak to Mr. or Mrs. Kimball, please, she repeated. Then she gave the number she dialed. Yes, that number is listed next to the name Kimball. Initial. She glanced at Mandy, who told her initial P. Dr. Emily said into the phone, Oh, I see. Yes. Well, I'm very sorry to have troubled you. She replaced the receiver and grimaced at Mandy and James. There's no Kimball there, and there never has been, she reported, and he doesn't know anyone called Kimball either. I think he was telling the truth, she said wryly. It must be a misprint, said Mandy. Let's try the last one. The last local one, James corrected. Goldie had wandered over to the table and plunked herself down between him and Mandy. James was petting her, but he kept his eyes on Dr. Emily. From the look on her face, this call was ever more promising. You say your son's got a golden retriever? Said Dr. Emily. And she disappeared 3 weeks ago? Yes. Please, I would. She searched for the pad and pen next to the phone. Mandy clutched at James' arms. This could be it. If Goldie had been stolen 3 weeks ago, the thief hadn't realized the dog was having pups until yesterday. Dr. Emily turned quickly from the phone. She's looking up her son's phone number. She can't remember it. I think she's very elderly, she added with a whisper. Then she said, Yes, I'm here, Mrs. Kimball. Dr. Emily started to write. But Mandy saw her mom's hand falter. She saw her shake her head. She glanced quickly at James just as Dr. Emily said, Mrs. Kimball, does your son live in Australia? Emily Hope had recognized the area code immediately. The Hopes had done a 6-month exchange with a veterinary practice in New South Wales, and they still kept in touch with the Munros at the Mitchell Gap Clinic. Australia? How could anyone think that a dog lost in Australia could end up here? Mandy crowed despairingly. She was so disappointed. James let out a huge sigh and reached for one of the other phone books. Cheer up, you two, said Dr. Emily. Poor Mrs. Kimball was only trying to help. I told you she sounded elderly, she said, glancing reprovingly at her daughter. Sorry, Mom, Mandy said. I suppose at any other time I'd have found it funny, she admitted. But I was so sure we were going to find the right Kimball this time. She turned to Goldie. Hey, what's the matter, girl? You shouldn't jump up like that. Not in your condition. Goldie was trying to get her front legs onto Mandy's lap. She was looking intently at Mandy, and she was panting slightly, her long pink tongue lolling out one side of her mouth. She's been trying to get in the box, said James, glancing up. She did try to get in it before, Dr. Emily, but I wanted you to check it first to make sure I've done everything right. Dr. Emily smiled. Okay, I'll do that now. But it looks fine, James. But James blushed, then turned to Mandy and said, There's only one Kimball in this phone book. I haven't... James, gasped Mandy. Say that again, will you? Just the first part. James gave her a puzzled look, but did as she'd asked. There's only one Kimball in this phone book, he said. Goldie jumped up again. I was right, cried Mandy. I knew I hadn't thought of it. Mom, James, you know what? Oh, we've been so silly because of all because of Jessica. Dr. Emily and James stared hard at Mandy. What on earth was she talking about? We just assumed that Kimball was her owner's last name because of Jessica Kimball, Mandy said. But it isn't, is it, girl? It's your name. You're named Kimball, aren't you? The golden retriever gave one quick, sharp bark. Kimball it was.